The order has already been given, not the order to watch, not the order to monitor, the order to find and destroy a weapons infrastructure that Iran spent 20 years and billions of dollars burying under mountains, under desert, under reinforced concrete, so deep that conventional weapons cannot reach it. The infrastructure that the IRGC Central Command has spent the last 6 weeks dispersing, relocating, and hiding with increasing desperation as the American targeting picture has narrowed around it. The underground missile network that Iran has always called its ultimate deterrent, the last card in a hand that has been losing since February 28th. Here is what is happening right now and why the next phase of this hunt determines whether Iran retains any meaningful military leverage at all or exits this conflict as a nation that no longer possesses the capability to threaten anyone. To understand why this network matters at the level it actually matters, you need to understand what Iran built and why it built it. The IRGC's underground missile program is not a collection of bunkers. It is a doctrine made physical, beginning in the early 2000s and accelerating after the 2006 Lebanon War demonstrated the survivability advantage of dispersed underground infrastructure. Iran systematically excavated tunnel complexes into the Zagros and Alborz mountain ranges, not storage facilities, operational launch platforms. The tunnels were engineered with reinforced concrete walls, independent power generation, climate control systems for missile propellant stability, and rail systems for moving missiles from storage positions to launch apertures cut directly into the mountain faces. The IRGC called them missile cities. That phrase was not propaganda. Each complex was designed to function as a self-contained military installation capable of receiving, maintaining, fueling, and launching ballistic missiles without surface exposure until the moment of launch. The Shahab-3, the Emad, the Ghada, the Khorramshahr, the medium and intermediate range ballistic missiles that form the backbone of Iran's strategic deterrent were designed to operate from inside these complexes. The logic was simple and internally coherent. You cannot destroy what you cannot find, and you cannot find what is buried 400 feet underground inside a mountain. That logic held for approximately 2 decades. It does not hold today. The reason it does not hold today is not a single weapons system or a single intelligence breakthrough. It is the convergence of 3 capabilities that did not exist simultaneously in any previous conflict and exist simultaneously in this one. Persistent overhead surveillance at a resolution and coverage duration that no previous generation of military technology could sustain. Seismic and signals intelligence collection that can detect the electromagnetic signature of an active missile facility even when it is operating below ground. And the Dark Eagle, the hypersonic missile system that the American military has requested for deployment to this theater, travels at greater than Mach 5, executes terminal maneuvers that defeat conventional air defense intercept geometry, and carries a penetrating warhead specifically engineered for hardened underground targets. The mountain is no longer a defense, it is a coordinate, and the American intelligence architecture has spent the last 60 days turning every known and suspected missile city location into exactly that. Here is where the Iranian command structure made the decision that has made this hunt simultaneously harder and more revealing. Approximately 6 weeks ago, IRGC logistics units began moving missiles, not repositioning within existing complexes, moving them. Truck convoys operating at night, transporter erector launchers relocated from catalogued positions to improvised launch sites, missile components separated from their warheads and moved along different routes to different locations. The dispersal operation was a rational response to a targeting environment that the IRGC correctly assessed had become lethal for fixed infrastructure. Move the assets, distribute the risk, force the American kill chain to hunt mobile targets instead of fixed coordinates. The problem with this logic is what the dispersal operation itself reveals to the surveillance architecture watching it. Every convoy that moves is a signal. Every launcher that relocates, generates a thermal signature, a communications event, a pattern of activity that the OQ for Global Hawks and the E-to-D Hawkeyes and the satellite coverage overhead are recording in real time. The IRGC is not hiding its missiles by moving them. It is generating a continuous stream of intelligence about where those missiles are going and what the IRGC considers worth protecting. Dispersal under persistent surveillance is not concealment. It is an inventory audit conducted involuntarily for the benefit of the force doing the hunting. The missile network is not only a military problem, it is a financial one, and the financial dimension is the part that the IRGC's operational planners did not adequately model when they designed a deterrent strategy built around infrastructure that requires continuous maintenance, continuous fuel supply, and continuous logistic support to remain operational. Every missile in those complexes requires propellant. Liquid-fueled systems require propellant that degrades and must be replaced on a cycle. Solid fuel systems require storage conditions that underground facilities were built to maintain, that improvised dispersal sites cannot replicate with the same precision. The sanctions architecture that Treasury Secretary Bassant has called Operation Economic Fury has been targeting the supply chains for exactly these materials: precursor chemicals for solid propellant, specialized lubricants for missile guidance systems, electronic components for terminal guidance seekers. The financial track and the military track are not running in parallel. They are converging on the same target from two directions simultaneously. A missile that cannot be fueled is not a deterrent. A guidance system that cannot be maintained is not a precision weapon. The underground network that Iran built as its ultimate insurance policy is being hollowed out from the inside by an economic pressure campaign, and from the outside by a surveillance and strike architecture simultaneously. Now add the command dimension, because the missile network's operational effectiveness depends on something that no amount of engineering can substitute for: a functioning command structure with the authority, the communications infrastructure, and the institutional coherence to make launch decisions and execute them. The IRGC's command structure is none of those things right now. The Supreme Leader is communicating through audio from an undisclosed location. The senior IRGC Navy commander was killed on March 30th with no publicly announced successor. The 2008 decentralization reform that distributed operational autonomy across 31 semi-autonomous corps was designed to make the organization survivable through leadership losses. It was not designed to coordinate a complex, time-sensitive, multi-site missile operation that requires centralized targeting decisions, synchronized launch timing across geographically dispersed sites, and real-time communication between command authority and operational units in an electromagnetic environment where the EA-18G Growlers have been suppressing Iranian radar and communications since Operation Epic Fury began. The missile cities were built for a command structure that no longer exists in the form hired to use them effectively. The dispersed launchers require coordination that the fragmented command architecture cannot reliably provide. The last card in the Iranian hand is being held by an institution that is no longer certain who has the authority to play it. Let us be precise about what the targeting operation is actually looking for, because the public framing of this hunt as a search for missiles undersells the specific and consequential nature of what the American intelligence and strike architecture is working to eliminate. The priority targets are not the missiles themselves. Missiles without command authority, without reliable guidance systems, without maintained propellant or expensive metal. The priority targets are the people, the facilities, and the communications nodes that give the missile network operational coherence. The mobile command posts from which regional IRGC commanders can authorize launches. The communications relay infrastructure that connects dispersed launcher positions to whatever remains of central authority. The fuel and propellant storage facilities that keep liquid fuel systems ready for launch on timelines shorter than the American response cycle. Eliminate those nodes and the missile network does not disappear. It becomes incoherent, launches with missiles and propellant, and no functioning command authority or ultra-strategic deterrent. They are an accident waiting to happen on Iran's own territory. Here is the question that the operational picture is now forcing into resolution. The IRGC's underground missile network was built on a specific and coherent deterrence theory that the credible threat of massive missile retaliation against American forces, against Gulf infrastructure, against Israeli population centers would impose a course calculation on American decision-making that constrained the scope of military action Iran would face. That theory required the network to be survivable, command coherent, and capable of executing on a timeline fast enough to constitute a real retaliatory threat. The financial track has compromised the logistics. The surveillance architecture has compromised the concealment. The command fragmentation has compromised the coherence. And the Dark Eagle's deployment request has introduced a penetrating strike capability that compromises the last remaining physical defense, the mountain itself. What the next 72 hours will begin to answer is whether the IRGC's leadership has correctly assessed that the deterrence theory has already failed, and is therefore looking for an exit from a strategic position that is collapsing, or whether the institutional incentive to demonstrate that the missiles still matter will produce launch decisions that confirm the opposite of what they are intended to prove. A missile launch to demonstrate relevance from a fragmenting command structure against the surveillance and strike architecture that has been preparing this hunt for 60 days does not restore deterrence. It completes the targeting sequence. The last card is still in the hand. The question is whether anyone inside the IRGC command structure still has a clear picture of what happens the moment it is played.